lead us, guide us, mentor us, direct us, help us, care about us, see what's amazingly special and unique and wonderful about us, which is different than what's amazing about the person we're sitting next to, because we're all supposed to be different in our gifts and our talents. And she was such an influence on me that I decided that's what I wanted to do, was be a school teacher. So from the 3rd grade on, that was what I wanted to do. Now, my dad was an entrepreneur, and he owned his own business, and he just kind of included the entire family in his storyline. So at Sunday dinners, he would talk about how many houses he was going to sell and what his goal was, and he even put it on the refrigerator. So he was a goal poster man before we even had goal posters. So he would put the goal, and the whole family was enrolled, and we were all excited about what his goal was and what his mission was. And I just remember as a kid, when he would come home and tell us what he did, that we would just all be caught up in that. So we were all a part of his business and what we were doing as a family. And so that was my exposure to being an entrepreneur and designing that and having it. So when I graduated from college, I got my teaching job just like right away. And I remember my dad took me to lunch, and as we were having lunch, he said, "I just want you to know I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of you for graduating from I was the first kid in the family in that generation that I've ever graduated from college. So first kid in our whole history of our family at that point in time. So I'm excited for you. I'm happy for you, and I'm proud of you. But I'm glad you got your teaching job, and I just think you could do more than that." And I remember thinking, excuse me? Hello, I just got my job and my dream job as to what I wanted to do, and you think I could do more than that? Like, I think that's a really rude thing to say. Like, no. And I really didn't say a whole lot to him, except I was just totally like flabbergasted by that comment. So I just kind of tucked it away, and I didn't think a whole lot about it. And then I went on into my teaching field, which I loved, and I love teaching school. It's just that since I am a freedom and flexibility person, and I do have that entrepreneurial spirit in my heart, it became a little challenging for me to work for somebody and for them to tell me what I could and could not do, because I want to kind of do that design thing. And I was making my salary and my income, but it was not enough, because we were newly married, Brian and I, and we had lots of debt. We had student loans, and we had credit cards, and we had a car payment on a car that had a hole in the floorboard that was falling apart, and we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment that I didn't like. And we had dreams of how we wanted our life to change, and I feel like I had maxed it out. Like, I felt like I had done everything I was supposed to do. Like, I was supposed to do these things, like go to college, graduate, get a job in my field. I did it all, and yet it was not making enough money. And it didn't matter how hard I worked or how dedicated I was or how conscientious I was at my job. I couldn't make any more money than that at that moment. And the teacher, who had been there longer than I was making more money than me, and she wasn't as dedicated as me, and she wasn't as committed as me, and she wasn't as conscientious as me, and she wasn't as excited as I was. And so I think quickly I had a crash course in what is not available to you sometimes in that guaranteed income, so to speak. So I was at the point where something had to shift, and Brian was in pre-med, so it wasn't going to be him, because when you're in pre-med, you really can't take on any part-time jobs. Something needed to change, and I didn't know what needed to change, but our car broke down. And sometimes I think in our lives, we tolerate our current situation because we don't know that there's options. And I was tolerating that situation until our car broke down. And then when our car broke down and I didn't have any way to pay for getting it fixed, it made me mad. And I think sometimes when you get to a point in your life when you draw the line in the sand and you say, this is it, because I'm not supposed to be living like this. It's supposed to be better than this. And we had an instant family, because when we got married, Brian's daughter, Jennifer, became my daughter. And she was 4 years old, so I had a daughter I was responsible for, and we weren't able to do the things I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to go roller skating on Saturdays. We didn't have the money to go roller skating. I wanted to take her to movies, and I wanted to buy her dresses that were pretty and that would spin, and and I wanted to buy her a Christmas coat that, you know, you buy at Dillard's that have the little black cording on it and the little muffs and the little hat. And I had things I wanted to do, and I couldn't do any of those things because we did not have the money for it. And I knew that that was not the way I wanted to live until Brian was done with college, until he was done with med school. Like, that was gonna be a long ways off for that to happen. So I realized that sometimes when things are gonna be a long ways off, you take your dreams of how you really want to live and what you want it to look like, and you start putting them on the shelf, and you start thinking, this is all that's available to me. So it was that car situation that happened that made me say, I don't know what's got to change, but something has got to change. And it was like a definiteness in my spirit. I think when you just go, I don't know, but something's got to change. It's almost that, I think it's that point in your life that when God brings you something, you're more receptive to it because you've drawn the line in the sand. Like, I just felt like that's the breaking point. Something's got to shift. And so it's almost like he knew, now you're going to hear me. So I was at a shopping center. I ran into a friend of mine I had known in college, and she had been with Mary Kay for a little over a year at that point. And she immediately, as soon as she saw me, like, I've got to tell you all about this. And I was like, that's so nice for you, but I don't want to hear about it. Like, I'm not interested in that. And I'm teaching school. Like, something needed to change, but in my mind still, I hadn't considered that there would be a different option. So thank goodness she invited me to go to lunch. When you're a broke person and you can't go to lunch, and someone offers you an invitation to take you to lunch, I was like, okay, I'll go to lunch. I'll listen to whatever you have to say if you're going to take me to lunch. So that was it. How ridiculous is that? But that was like, thank goodness, that was my invitation. We sat down at lunch. She went through the marketing plan with me, and I got it. I mean, I got how the money was made, but that was not what got me. Even though I could see it, and I thought that was cool, and I thought that would be so fun. I love makeup. That would be fun to do. And 50%, oh my gosh, who could make a better commission than 50%? I sold stuff when I was in college, and I knew that was pretty easy to do. So, but it really was her telling me about the philosophy of the company that caused me to say yes. Because she said that Mary Kay Ash started this company for the sake of for women to be successful in their lives. It wasn't just successful with their business, it's about success in their lives. And then the statement that many of you have heard me say is that she said that Mary Kay did not believe in constructive criticism. That she felt that criticism is not constructive, and that you can guide people and mentor people and direct people without criticizing them and diminishing them. That criticism is destructive, it's not constructive, and that you can, through encouragement and love, allow women to discover who they really are and give them wings to fly. And I was like, this is like everything I believe in. I love this. I mean, that's why I love teaching school. It's just that I was limited in that. So it was like, here was my answer. And so I said, wrote out a check. I didn't think anything else about it. I didn't ask her any other questions. I just wrote a check, $85. That's how much the starter kit cost 33 years ago. That's how much the starter kit cost, 85 bucks. So, and you could get it for 75 this month. How amazing is that? I mean, really, that's pretty incredible, that many years ago. $85, Mary Kay Cosmetics handed her the check and said, don't cash it. Yes, there is not $85 in my checking account right now, but I know I'm supposed to do this, so I'm gonna figure out a way. I mean, when you know you're supposed to do something, it doesn't matter if you can't at the moment, you figure out how you can. And that's what I've discovered with all the women that I've worked with in this company for all the years that I've worked with women and helped them be successful and then watched other women become highly successful, is that if you have that internal understanding that if it doesn't look like you can do it, then you just figure out how you can. Those are the women who are champions. It doesn't have to look like you can do it. As long as you know internally, I'm going to figure out a way that I can. And that's what, I mean, if you have that spirit, that's all God needs to do to help you see what you can do. I mean, but you got to have that spirit, because otherwise you've defeated yourself before you started. Anything that you do, it's got to be, I can figure out a way. I will make a way, find a way, right way. Yeah, she uses it against me now, let me tell you. So I can't remember the last time she goes, I thought we were make a way, find a way people. We can figure this out, right? Oh, okay. It usually requires me figuring it out. So, So I started this with, and you know, I think, especially for those of you who are brand new, it's not, I don't think you ever feel like you know everything you're supposed to know, because you're really not ever supposed to know everything you're supposed to know. You just start with what you do know, and you just start going forward. And the good news is you can't really ever mess up, because all it is about showing a woman how to use a great product. She gets to put it on her face, put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on, take it home. And it's a simple process, but you really learn to get good through the experience of doing it. So you can't really know how much fun and how great this is going to be until you let yourself figure it out. And the only way you figured it out is by doing it. And it's not hard, it's really simple. And anytime I ever complicated it in my mind, I always thought all I need to do is just sit down in front of one woman and just share this product with her. And it's her decision whether she's going to invest in it or not. And I'm not sitting there in front of her to try to convince her to do that. I'm just sitting there in front of her and teaching her about it, what it does, how it does it, and why I love it. And then she decides. And it's got to be her decision, because women love things when they're in control of why they made the decision to do that. That's why we walk away from stores in the mall who try to intimidate us into buying things, or they bug us, or they come after us. It's because we want to be in control of our own buying decisions. So in this business, you don't have to overrun their thought process. You don't have to push them in anything. You don't have to try to convince them of something. You just let the product do its work, and you just add information to it. And then you give them the ability to make that decision as to what they want and how much they want. And then you will have a forever trusting relationship with them. And that's what this is all about. This is all about building trusting relationships, because customers won't stay customers unless they trust you. And a relationship's not worth being in a relationship if you're not trusting that person. So bottom line, that's what you do. You build trusting relationships. So I started it out, I did 3 parties every Sunday. I did a part, and I chose Sundays because I was teaching school all week long. And Saturday was my day to get everything else done. Sunday, I got dressed and went to church, so I figured if I was dressed, I might as well do a party. That'll work. So I did one at 2, I did one at 5, I did one at 8 every Sunday. And my one day, I actually made more money in my one day than I made teaching school 40 hours for that whole week. One day. So when I did my first one day, which wasn't a Sunday, it was a Saturday, my first one day, I did the woman at the dry cleaner. From just going in there, I just said, Doris, I know you don't know me very well, but I just started a new business and I'm really excited and I don't really know what I'm doing, but if you'll have a party and I can practice on you and any of your friends, then I would just really appreciate it. And she said, sure. So she had a party, my mom had a party, and my mother-in-law had a party. And that was my first Saturday of parties. And from that Saturday of parties, I came home and Brian was waiting for me at the door, and he didn't say, did you have a great time? And he didn't say, did those women have fun? And he didn't say, did you make more friends? He said, how much money did you make? Exactly. And I was like, I don't have any idea, because I really didn't have any idea. I just had such a great time. And he's like, well, that's nice, but like, really, did this work? Did you make any money? I said, yes, I just don't know how much. So he goes, well, where are all your receipts? I said, I don't know. So we went out to the trunk of my car and he opened it up and pink tickets went flying. And I remember because it was snowy out and he's like chasing big tickets down. He's doing them all and I'm like, I have the money in the little bag. Like, I didn't have the pink tickets in there, but I knew where the checks were. They were in the little bag. The checks weren't flying around, just the pink tickets were flying around. So he said, well, okay. So we took him inside, we counted him up, and he said, okay, how much of this is yours? And I said, half of it is mine. And I had made $350, and $350 way back then was more than I made teaching school all week long. So then he said, so actually I made $200 a week teaching school. So, and back then, the basic skincare was $17.50. So when you sell $700 worth, and that's a lot of product. It's a lot of product. So that was all he needed. He was like, so you made $350, so are you gonna do this again? You're not gonna stop now, are you? Like, you're gonna keep going, right? I said, yes, I have more of these. I mean, I booked for next week, and that's how I learned how to do it, was I booked from that Sunday to the next Sunday, that Sunday to the next Sunday. I didn't book any further out than a week at a time. So the party that I had, I just would sit down with the women when I did the individual consultation, and I said, so do you want to do your checkup facial just you and me, or do you want to do it you and me and free? So you can role play with me. You and me, or you and me and free? So if I'm asking you, what would you say?
You and me and free.
Ooh, cool. Well, you're a smart woman. I could. So let me tell you what that is. If it was just you and me, we would book another time. We'd do a checkup facial, the two of us, and most likely I'd take you to my success meeting so you could be my feature model. But if you want to do you and me and free, then next Sunday I have parties at 2 and at 5 and at 8, and you can pick one of those slots that would be best for you. You can invite friends, and I'll show you all the free stuff you're going to get.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, there we go. So I booked, my goal for my first party on Sunday was to book my next 3 parties for the next Sunday. So when I walked out of my first party, the next Sunday was already booked. So the last 2 parties on Sunday, I had them all come with me Monday night. Everybody who started on the product to be my feature model, because we were going to do their checkup facial on Monday night at my success meeting. So I had guests at my success meeting every single Monday night. There would be women who didn't book for the next week. So that's how I just ran it. And the deal is that you just start picking up momentum. When you have a strategy and you just stick with the strategy, and it was the same every week, then it just built and it grew and it built and it grew, and I got better at it, and I had a system that just started taking over. And then after another month, it was after 2 months actually, then it was Brian who set me down, and he said, you know, I want you to look at this, because I wasn't paying attention. I was just having fun. I think you just get caught up in it. You're having such a good time, and he was keeping track of how much money I was making. And so he said, here's the deal. You have been doing this for 2 months now, and I don't know if you realize, but you made more money this month than you made last month, and you're working the same hours and putting in the same amount of time, but your income is increasing. And I knew that, because when you're an entrepreneur, you know that that's the name of the game, is that you work the same hours, but your income gets better and better and better and better. And you don't have to work more hours to make more money. You just have an opportunity that grows, so that you don't have to work more hours to make more money. The income just keeps increasing. But Brian was in the military. So before we got married, he was in the Air Force. So he didn't get that concept. So when he figured out that the income was going up, he said, how is that? How is that happening, that your income is growing, but your time is not growing? And I said, well, because 1, I'm getting better at this, so they're buying more. And 2, because I have customers from the first month that wanted more stuff the second month. And 3, I'm building a team. So when I'm building a team, now I have commissions coming in from my team. So he was getting very intrigued by that. And then in the meantime, I started the end of November. It was January that I went to a guest event in Omaha. Are we running out of time?
They're doing
color.
No.
Oh, they're doing color. Okay.
We just pull them in for color.
Okay. So you cut me off when I'm supposed to be cut off. Okay.
No. I don't want to cut you off at all. I actually tried to take more time in there, but.
Holly. So we went to a guest event in Omaha, Nebraska, that Jan Harris did, and Jan was my senior national sales director. She still is. And she and her husband John were at this guest event. And it was a big fashion show, and they gave lots of recognition. And on the way there, Brian said to me, you know, I am excited for us. I think this is awesome, and I'm excited that you're excited. But I don't really need to go to this. Like, he was driving and then telling me that he didn't really need to go. I was like, but I really want you to go. And he goes, but I don't need this hypey stuff. I don't need to go with the yah rah stuff. I just want you to do your thing, and I will like be excited, but I really don't, it's not my gig. Don't think so. So I was like, well, right, just this one time. So we went, and they did they had Star Consultants stand up for recognition, and they had the red jackets. and Star Consultant, and all that good stuff was going on. We're all standing up and getting lots of recognition, and he's sitting there like this, and his foot swinging, and he's acting like he's totally bored. Like, this is nice. Yeah. And he wasn't even excited when I got to stand up. He just kept swinging his foot. It was totally bored. So then Jan Harris is up there, and she's got the microphone, and John gets up. And he comes up and he takes the microphone from Jan and he goes, you know what came today in the mail? Our 1099 came today in the mail from Mary Kay. Would you guys all like to know what Jan made last year? And everybody's like, yeah. I mean, it was probably, we had like 300 people in this room. It was at the Holiday Inn on 72nd and Grover. It was a big room and everybody's like, hush. He goes, well, Jan made $64,000 last year. Now, if you know Jan Harris, she makes over $64,000 a month now. But then it was for the year. And when you're making $11,000 a year teaching school, $64,000 was a lot of money. And my very bored husband, he turns to me and he grabs the sleeve of my jacket and he goes, I think you would do that too. And I remember like, what? And he goes, you could make that kind of money too. If she could do that, you could do that. I was like, oh my gosh, God. So we get in the car on the way home and he's like, how do you become a red coat? It's not a red coat, it's a red jacket. And I just need one more recruit to be a red jacket. He's like, well, you could do it. Let's figure it out. Who's it going to be? Like, oh my gosh, you went from, I don't even want to go to this thing now, like you're taking over my life. Like you took on Pinky and the Brain attitude. Like, we're going to take over the world. It's going to turn pink. It was ridiculous. But it was really fun because he got all on it. And then he wanted to know more. And then he got more involved. And then we went to seminar that year. And he was just crazed. And it was a blast. So I left my teaching job. Then at the end of that school year, I had to make a decision whether I was going to sign my contract, which that wasn't even a decision. I knew I was going to sign my contract. But I had to go into my principal's office and tell him that I wasn't going to. And that was, I mean, I've told that story a lot of times, but that was kind of an interesting appointment because I didn't think a whole lot about it. I knew that I was going to do it, and I knew that I was going to be a director because that's what my goal was. And I was not concerned about leaving my teaching job at all, but I think part of the reason was I was already making more money than I was teaching, and I already watched the directors. Like, I paid way close attention to them, like what they did, how they did that, what their life was like. They all were different. Some were young, some were older, some had lots of kids, some had no kids, some were single, some were, I mean, I thought if all these different women in all walks of life are highly successful, bless you. Then how cool is that? I mean, how awesome is that it doesn't matter? Some had college education, some did not, some had master's degrees, I mean, it was all different. And so I paid attention, and I thought that's exactly what I wanted to be, which I knew pretty soon as I started, that's what I wanted to do, was to be a director. So kind of planned it out, so I went into my principal's office and told him I wasn't going to sign my contract. And he said, so why are you not going to sign your contract? And I said, well, because I can be a director. I remember he was like, what? He goes, let me get this straight. You're going to be a what? In Mary Kay? Like that, those people that drive pink Cadillacs? I mean, they even knew back then they did. That's what, so, you know, there weren't that many, well, I shouldn't say that. There were quite a few in Omaha, Nebraska at the time. And I said, yes, I'm going to be a director. And he said, okay, so those women have told you that you can support your family selling lipstick. Really? Well, you just might as well sign your contract right now, because if you don't sign it, then you're going to come crawling back to me and begging to let you sign it in a couple months, because you cannot support your family selling lipstick. So I always say that that's the moment in time where I wish I would have been a thinker by nature, because thinkers always know exactly what to say in every situation, you know, like it comes to them and they know how to respond. What would be the best thing to say that would just cause them to think a new thought? I don't know, because I'm not a thinker, I'm totally a feeler. So thinkers get angry and they process it different, and feelers get wounded and they process it different. So I sat in there biting my tongue saying, I'm not gonna cry about it, I'm not gonna cry. and I really didn't think about what I thought he was going to say. I didn't even think about it. I mean, I should have thought that he was not going to be excited about this, but I don't know why I didn't think about it. Because I'm an optimist. I just thought he would accept it, but he didn't. So I didn't cry. I walked out of there. I got in my car with a hole in the floorboard and cried all the way home. And cried not like little tears running down my face cry, but the little cry. You know, and you go, and I should have said this, and I didn't say that, and so I mean, it was just like a mess. So by the time I got home, Brian was waiting for me at the door, and he opened the door, and he was like, "Ah!" Like, what happened to you? I was like, no, red face, all sloshy. Oh, it was terrible. So I was like, so he brought me in the apartment, and I was just going on, and he was like, oh my gosh, what did you think he was going to say? Like, really? This made you feel that bad? Did you think he was going to say, here's a ribbon, I'm so happy for you? Like, what did you think? This is crazy. Did you think, is he going to ruin your entire day? Do not let him do that. And literally, he ruined at least 2 weeks of my life. 2 weeks of my life, I didn't book another appointment. I didn't hold an appointment. I walked around my apartment, and all I could hear was his words running through my head that said, do you think you can support your family selling lipstick? You could ever support your family selling lipstick? And the sad thing about that whole 2 weeks is that I already knew better. I'd already made more money. I mean, I already had the proof. But it was one person who I admired in my life, and who just rained on my parade, that caused my confidence to just get wiped out. So it was literally my dad, who Brian called and said, Stacy needs to talk to you. So he had me come over, and I sat down and told him my little tale of woe, and he was the one who said to me, okay, here's the deal, are you done crying? He waited, like handing me Kleenex. Are you done crying? I'm done. Goes, here's the deal, Stacy. You just learned one of the best lessons you're ever going to learn in your adult life, and that is when you work for someone else, you'll never succeed past their limitations of your success. And you have no limitations, and you're okay, and you're going to be great. So you just need to not worry about it. Just go after it. So it really was his words that just kind of gave me a new lease on life. And I went back home, got on the phone, started booking again. But what I've learned from that is I've learned that I made a decision that I was not going to allow any other person to derail my dreams because they didn't understand. Because lots of people don't understand. Lots of people don't understand people who have dreams. Lots of people who don't understand when your dream is not a common dream. Lots of people get nervous when somebody starts to succeed at a level that is remarkable to them. So if it makes them nervous, they kind of want to shut them down or shoot them down or tell them why it's not going to work. And so I've just learned that success can make people nervous. So I've just learned to do my best at making people feel comfortable and loving on people regardless of whether they understand or not. And it's not important to me that they get it, because I don't need them to get it. I just need them to be nice. And I have them be nice by being nice back. So it's just by giving out. So my philosophy of life is that you don't be rude back to people who are rude to you, you be nicer back to them. Because hurting people hurt people, and usually the people who are rude, they don't get it, or they're just hurting. And usually people fight fire with fire, and when they do that, they just create more fire. So it's the gracious spirit that always mends bridges, builds bridges, and makes it better. And you got one of those cool ones.
You gave it to me.
I did! Oh, that's so fun!
I didn't do that on purpose.
Oh, I'm so used to Whitney's, because she's always got those. Yay. How fun, Kendra girl. Yay. Okay, so consensus is I just got back on the phone, got booking, became a director, and then 5 months later we earned our first pink Cadillac. So then I got to give up the old car with a hole in the floorboard and replace it with brand new shiny Cadillac. That was so awesome. And that was the first of 19 Cadillacs.
Now, is that amazing? That is amazing. It is amazing to me. Really, that is amazing. But it's just, so every 2 years we turn in that Cadillac, get a brand new Cadillac. So every 2 years, brand new. And I remember that one year when the girls were little, I was like, they don't get really excited about the pink Cadillac because they have had pink Cadillac. They came in home from the hospital as babies in pink Cadillacs, and they don't know any different. They don't know that other people don't have pink Cadillacs. And so this time when we get a brand new one, I'm gonna make a really big deal out of it. So that year, we went and picked up the car, we put a big bow on it, and we drove up in front of the house. We're like, brand new car, beep, 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 beep. And Whitney came running out and she's like, oh, because Whitney could get excited pretty easy. She was happy. And Mackenzie came out and went, what's the big deal? It's my thinker child. I was like, this is a brand new pink Cadillac. She goes, has bugs on the front just like the other one did. But this one has a sunroof, and you can open up the roof and you can go up through the top. So she decided to get in and check it out. So pretty soon she was going, ta-da! Jumping up through the top. So we would stop at stoplights and she would like, can I open up the thing? No, you can't. Ta-da! So it was just creating the gratitude in my daughters that because they grew up in the land of amazing. And that's probably the greatest gift. The greatest gift to me is the environment I got to create for our family, so that they just thought that was normal and that they get to recreate the normal. So it's fun for me to watch Whitney recreate that in her life. It's very cool. So what questions can I answer? Because I know we don't have all night together, but I wish we did.
I was actually wondering, have you talked to your recruiter, like, ever?
Yes, yes. She did not stay in the company. And however, when I became a national sales director, I sent her a huge bouquet of roses and thanked her. Said, you changed my life forever.
That's awesome.
And she called me right away. She did.
Did she get how successful you are?
Oh yeah, she knows, and she's wonderful. She was very excited for me and very happy. Very happy. Yeah, she lives in California. Yeah, we talk every once in a while out of the blue. And actually, she's not a Facebook friend. I should go figure that out. That's never dawned on me until right now. Should go find her. So.
How fast did you become a director?
Let's see. So it was, okay, I started in November, and it was the next February 1st that I was a brand new director. So I started in 81, November of 81, at the end of the month, and it was February 83 when I was the new director. And then it was June of 83 when we earned our first Cadillac. Okay. Good question. What else?
How did you like power through other like discouraging moments? Like you talked about the one with your principal and the superintendent possibly. Were there other ones and other times that you kind of struggled?
You know what? That one was kind of a landmark one, and I think when it's your first one, that's like a major setback emotionally, and you learn from it. Then when you make a decision, you're going to look at it differently. Then it helps you navigate other things that happen with a different outlook and attitude. So I had different discouragements that have happened, obviously, in my lifetime. But I know that through every discouragement, there's always an open door, there's always an answer, there's always a seed of a better thing that comes out of it. I mean, it always, to people I know, that sounds like a Pollyanna outlook, but I believe it with all my heart. I mean, any challenging thing I've ever gone through in my life, God has always brought restoration, or He's brought an insight, or an understanding, or a perspective, or an amazing blessing. So I just know, I just count on it. So I don't think they affect me the same, because I think when bad things happen to people, they assume that it's meant to stop them, or take them down, or keep them stuck, or hurt them so they can't. But that's all how we process it. If you look at it as it's just a setback and it's a setup for something greater that's going to happen, and I'm going to get past it, I'm going to get through it, I'm going to learn something great from it, then it doesn't bother you as much. It doesn't hurt as bad. So, good question. You're welcome. What else can I answer?
Have you ever felt stuck in your personal business? And what would you do to push past that feeling?
Oh, such a great question. Such a great question. I had a director once tell me when I was at a place that I felt like I was stuck with, actually I was a new director and I had a big goal and I was always kind of like falling short of it. And a director from the podium, so she didn't really say it to me specifically, but it was for me. You know, when you go like, that was for me. This is what she said. So I'm not saying this, but this is what I learned from it. She said, being stuck does not mean that you've reached the end of your potential. It means that you've reached the end of your willingness to do what's necessary to get unstuck. So I've learned that anytime I've been stuck, there's always a way to get unstuck. It's just lots of times I've never been really willing to do what's necessary to get unstuck. Or I've had to talk myself into it because, so the answer's there. It's just, I want to keep going around trying to do the same thing to get unstuck. And that same thing is not going to do it. Does that help?
Yes. That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know I've heard that from Chelsea many times.
Did you? Okay. Yeah, she's good at picking up on, yeah. But we all do it. So yes, we all get stuck at different things.
Good.
Yes, always. That's just life. We hit a wall with all kinds of things. With exercise, with eating healthy, with raising our kids. I mean, there's always places we get stuck. It's just part of the deal. What else? I know, don't you love it? Like you can think of them in the middle of the night. Yeah. Directors, do you have a question for me? Or a question you want me to answer? For anybody? You're thinking, okay. So in the meantime, you want me to just keep talking? Sure. Okay. I'll keep talking. That's so funny. Okay, so I think I told this story. This was such a fun story because I think of it every time I'm in Lincoln. Because since we lived here, we lived in Williamsburg. And the girls and I used to go, I think this happened when we lived in Fox Hollow. We lived in Fox Hollow, and the girls and I were going to Prairie Life to go swimming. Remember, you know where Prairie Life is? See, I tell this story, people don't know where Prairie Life is because they're not living in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I tell this story in Georgia, nobody knows what I'm talking about. So, okay, so we were going to Prairie Life, and I just picked up a brand new pink Cadillac, like a brand new, like brand new, just picked it up. And the girls were in the back seat in their swimsuits, and they had their little shorts on, and I was driving my car and had my little flip-flops on, and we were going to go swimming. So as we're driving down 70th Street, the car like went boom. That literally, like now I live in Oklahoma City, and we have earthquakes in Oklahoma City. Did you know that? I didn't know that till I moved there. Yes, we do. And so when you have an earthquake, that's exactly how it feels. It feels like all of a sudden, boom, something just like shifted. It's the weirdest feeling in the world. So yeah, Whitney was just there and she was like, what was that? And we were like, it was just an earthquake. And usually the chandelier swings a little bit in her. Yeah, it's funny. It's a funny feeling. So the car went boom and the girls were both like, oh, what was that? I was like, I don't know. And just as we were trying to figure out what it was, this little car goes zipping by us like full speed ahead, boom, because the teenage boy who was in the car hit our car, like he hit our car, and then he took off. And so I'm watching him like take off, and so I don't even think. I just like put my foot on. Oh, I'm following him like I'm not even thinking to myself. I should not. This is crazy. I didn't think that thought. And Cadillacs are really fast. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but they really are very fast. And so, because they have those OnStar engines in them, and they were called OnStar engines. But anyway, so I got right behind him, like, boom, I came right behind him, and he's like going in and out of the traffic, and I'm following him in and out of the traffic, and the girls are in the back seat, they're going, whoa, 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 whoa. They're so excited, like, I can't believe Mom's doing this, and I wasn't even saying anything, like, I'm just following him, and he pulls into a subdivision, and I follow him into the subdivision, and then he pulls in front of his house, and he hits the garage door opener, and the garage door goes open, and he goes into the garage and shuts it, the garage door goes down. So, we are sitting outside of his house, and I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, so the girls are silent in the back, and pretty soon Wendy goes, what are you going to do? So I went, well, I'm going to see how much damage he did to the car first. So I get out and I walk around the car, and yeah, there's like this little crease right in the side of the car where you hit the car. Brand new, like brand new, brand new. I know it's upsetting anytime somebody hits your car, but when it's brand new. So I got back in the car and I was like, okay, what's the best way to think about this? Okay, this is a teenage kid. So I started saying this out loud because the girls are in the back. Okay, he's a teenage kid. He's probably done this before. Most likely he could lose his license. And his parents are going to get really angry with him. And it's probably going to cost him a lot of money to have to pay for getting my car fixed. And I've got a deductible on my insurance, and it's not that big of a deal. And so it's not going to hurt me as bad as it's going to hurt him. So I'm just going to forgive and forget, and we're just going to go on our merry way. So we started pulling away, and I'm just taking deep breaths and forget about it. It's going to be fine. I'm not going to think about it anymore. I'm going to have a happy day. So driving away, Mackenzie sticks her little head up between the seats, and she goes, yeah, Mom, but I bet you made him sweat sitting up at his house for as long as we've been sitting here. I was like, yeah, I probably did. And every time the kid ever saw another pink Cadillac, he probably broke out in his sweat. So, that was it. But it was fun for the moment. I thought it was in a race.
Did Brian ever say anything?
Yeah, he was like, were you crazy? He was like, you just didn't get pulled over on top of your car getting a dent in it. He wasn't scared. I know. So, and okay, let's see. Here's another good one. We picked up a Cadillac one time, Cadillac Stories. And it did have it. Those engines were called OnStar engines before they had OnStar. You know when you know OnStar that you have in your cars now. They had OnStar engines, which were like Corvette engines, and it was a big deal in Cadillac at the time. Like we've got these amazing engines we're putting in these cars. So we picked up a new Cadillac, and and it was the first time we had that engine in it. So Brian was like, we're gonna go to the mountains. We're gonna go to the mountains. We're gonna see Jan and John, and we're gonna like go up into the hairpin turns, and it's gonna be so fun. He was all excited. So we're going out on the interstate on 80, headed to Colorado, and we pull into this little gas station right outside the interstate, and it was like a little gas station. And as we pulled up to the gas station, there's this cowboy. I mean, a cowboy hat on, cowboy boots on, and he had a rack on the back of his truck, and there was hay and manure hanging all over. And we pulled up, so we pulled up right in front, and we got out to put gas in the car. And Brian gets out of the car because he was driving, and he goes, ooh, it's a right fast car. Brian goes, yeah, it is. He goes, yeah, it's got one of those OnStar engines in it. And he goes, yeah, it does. He goes, yeah, been reading about it. And he goes, does it go really fast? He goes, yeah, it goes pretty fast. He goes, that's cool. And pretty soon he goes, but the color. And Brian goes, yeah, I know, but it's free. He goes, what do you mean it's free? He goes, it's a Mary Kay car. It's a free Cadillac. And he goes, it's free. Yeah. So Brian goes in to pay before he comes back out, and because that's before you put the credit cards in the pump. He went inside and paid, comes back out and gets in the car, and he goes, okay, you're not gonna believe this. He goes, I went to pay, and the guy behind the cash register goes, ooh, fast car. I go, yeah, it is a fast car. He goes, wow, it goes from 0 to 60 in whatever amount of time. He goes, I've been reading all about it. He goes, but the colors. And he goes, before I could say anything, the cowboy guy goes, yeah, but it's free. See, that wouldn't happen with a white Cadillac. It's party on wheels everywhere you go. It's lots of fun. Going through life.
We're done.
I'm done? I'm done. Okay, I'm done.
Is
Is
there
there
one-
one question before I'm done? One? Like one? Can I do one?
Sure.
Okay, one. Does anybody? No? Is that it?
What was the biggest way you built your business?
The most important?
Yes.
Most significant? Okay. Is learning that momentum is the magic. So the more that no matter what time you put into it, it's entirely up to you. So if you put in 10 hours a week, or if you put in 5 hours a week, you put in 25 hours a week, whatever amount of time you want to put into it. If you do the same amount of time every single week consistently, then you will build momentum. And when momentum kicks in, then it just flows and goes, and you're not going to feel like you're stopping and starting and stopping and starting. But if you don't get the consistency down, it doesn't matter what amount of time you put into it, you're going to feel like you're just going back and forth. So, momentum. You're welcome. Yay. Okay, now we're done.
Ladies, I tried.